LEE greater than Electronic Code of Federal Regulations (ECFR) greater than Title 18. Conservation of Power and Water Resources greater than Chapter I. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Department of Energy greater than Subchapter C. Accounts, Federal Power ACT greater than Part 101. Uniform System of Accounts prescribed for public utilities and licensees subject to the provisions of the Federal Power ACT. 18 CFR Part 101 Part 101. Uniform System of Accounts prescribed for public utilities and licensees subject to the provisions of the Federal Power ACT. Authority. 16 U.S.C. 791A 825R, 2601-2645, 31 U.S.C. 9701, 42 U.S.C. 7101, 7352, 7651, 76510. Source. Order 218, 25 FR 5014, June 7, 1960, unless otherwise noted. Editorial Not E. For Federal Register citations affecting Part 101, see the list of CFR sections affected, which appears in the Finding Aids section of the printed volume and at www.govinfo.gov. Not E. Order 141, 12 FR 8503, December 19, 1947, provides in part as follows. CFR State Regulations. Prescribing a system of accounts for public utilities and licensees under the Federal Power Act. The Federal Power Commission acting pursuant to authority granted by the Federal Power Act, particularly Sections 301, 304, and 309, and Paragraph 13, of Section 3, Section 4b thereof, and finding such action necessary and appropriate for carrying out the provisions of said Act, hereby adopts the accompanying system of accounts entitled, Uniform System of Accounts prescribed for public utilities and licensees subject to the provisions of the Federal Power Act, and the rules and regulations contained therein, and it is hereby ordered. That said system of accounts and said rules and regulations contained therein be and the same are hereby prescribed and promulgated as the system of accounts and rules and regulations of the Commission to be kept and observed by public utilities subject to the jurisdiction of the Commission and by licensees holding licenses issued by the Commission, to the extent and in the manner set forth therein. B. That said system of accounts and rules and regulations therein contained shall, as to all public utilities now subject to the jurisdiction of the Commission and as to all present licensees, become effective on January 1, 1937, and as to public utilities and licensees which may hereafter become subject to the jurisdiction of the Commission, they shall become effective as of the date when such public utility becomes subject to the jurisdiction of the Commission or on the effective date of the license. C. That a copy of said system of accounts and rules and regulation contained therein be forthwith served upon each public utility subject to the jurisdiction of the Commission, and each licensee or permittee holding a license or permit from the Commission. This system of accounts supersedes the system of accounts prescribed for licensees under the Federal Water Power Act, an Order No. 13, entered November 20, 1922, prescribing said system of accounts, was rescinded effective January 1, 1937. Applicability of system of accounts. This system of accounts is applicable in principle to all licensees subject to the Commission's accounting requirements under the Federal Power Act, and to all public utilities subject to the provisions of the Federal Power Act. The Commission reserves the right, however, under the provisions of Section 301 of the Federal Power Act to classify such licensees and public utilities and to prescribe a system of classification of accounts to be kept by and which will be convenient for and meet the requirements of each class. This system of accounts is applicable to public utilities, as defined in this part, and to licensees engaged in the generation and sale of electric energy for ultimate distribution to the public. This system of accounts shall also apply to agencies of the United States engaged in the generation and sale of electric energy for ultimate distribution to the public, so far as may be practicable, in accordance with applicable statutes. In accordance with the requirements of Section 3 of the Act 49 Stat. 839, 16 U.S.C. 796-13, the Classification of Investment in Road and Equipment of Steam Roads, Issue of 1914, Interstate Commerce Commission, is published and promulgated as a part of the accounting rules and regulations of the Commission, and a copy thereof appears as Part 103 of this chapter. Irrespective of any rules and regulations contained in this system of accounts, the cost of original projects licensed under the Act, and also the cost of additions thereto and betterments thereof, shall be determined under the rules and principles as defined and interpreted in said classification of the Interstate Commerce Commission so far as applicable. Cross-references. For application of uniform system of accounts to Class C and D public utilities and licensees, see Part 104 of this chapter. For statements and reports, see Part 141 of this chapter. Uniform system of accounts prescribed for public utilities and licensees subject to the provisions of the Federal Power Act. Definitions. When used in this system of accounts. 1. Accounts means the accounts prescribed in this system of accounts. 2. Actually issued, as applied to securities issued or assumed by the utility, means those which have been sold to bona fide purchasers for a valuable consideration, those issued as dividends on stock, and those which have been issued in accordance with contractual requirements direct to trustees of sinking funds. 3. Actually outstanding, as applied to securities issued or assumed by the utility, means those which have been actually issued and are neither retired nor held by or for the utility, provided, however, that securities held by trustees shall be considered as actually outstanding. 4. Amortization means the gradual extinguishment of an amount in an account by distributing such amount over a fixed period, over the life of the asset or liability to which it applies, or over the period during which it is anticipated the benefit will be realized. 5. A. Associated affiliated companies means companies or persons that directly, or indirectly through one or more intermediaries, control, or are controlled by, or are under common control with, the accounting company. B. Control including the terms controlling, controlled by, and under common control with means the possession, directly or indirectly, of the power to direct or cause the direction of the management and policies of a company, whether such power is exercised through one or more intermediary companies, or alone, or in conjunction with, or pursuant to an agreement, and whether such power is established through a majority or minority ownership or voting of securities, common directors, officers, or stockholders, voting trusts, holding trusts, associated companies, contract or any other direct or indirect means. 6. Book cost means the amount at which property is recorded in these accounts without deduction of related provisions for accrued depreciation, amortization, or for other purposes. 7. Commission means the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. 8. Continuing plant inventory record means company plant records for retirement units and mass property that provide, as either a single record, or in separate records readily obtainable by references made in a single record, the following information. A. For each retirement unit. 1. The name or description of the unit, or both. 2. The location of the unit. 3. The date the unit was placed in service. 4. The cost of the unit is set forth in Plant Instructions 2 and 3 of this part, and 5. The plant control account to which the cost of the unit is charged, and B. For each category of mass property. 1. A general description of the property and quantity. 2. The quantity placed in service by vintage year. 3. The average cost is set forth in Plant Instructions 2 and 3 of this part, and 4. The plant control account to which the costs are charged. 9. Cost means the amount of money actually paid for property or services. When the consideration given is other than cash in a purchase and sale transaction, as distinguished from a transaction involving the issuance of common stock in a merger or a pooling of interest, the value of such consideration shall be determined on a cash basis. 10. Cost of removal means the cost of demolishing, dismantling, tearing down or otherwise removing electric plant, including the cost of transportation and handling incidental thereto. It does not include the cost of removal activities associated with asset retirement obligations that are capitalized as part of the tangible long-lived assets that give rise to the obligation. See General Instruction 25. 11. Debt expense means all expenses in connection with the issuance and initial sale of evidences of debt, such as fees for drafting mortgages and trust deeds, fees and taxes for issuing or recording evidences of debt, cost of engraving and printing bonds and certificates of indebtedness, fees paid trustees, specific costs of obtaining governmental authority, fees for legal services, fees and commissions paid underwriters, brokers, and salesmen for marketing such evidences of debt, fees and expenses of listing on exchanges, and other like costs. 12. Depreciation, as applied to depreciable electric plant, means the loss in service value not restored by current maintenance, incurred in connection with the consumption or prospective retirement of electric plant in the course of service from causes which are known to be in current operation and against which the utility is not protected by insurance. Among the causes to be given consideration are wear and tear, decay, action of the elements, inadequacy, obsolescence, changes in the art, changes in demand and requirements of public authorities. 13. Discount, as applied to the securities issued or assumed by the utility, means the excess of the par stated value of no par stocks or face value of the securities plus interest or dividends accrued at the date of the sale over the cash value of the consideration received from their sale. 14. Investment advances means advances, represented by notes or by book accounts only, with respect to which it is mutually agreed or intended between the creditor and debtor that they shall be settled by the issuance of securities or shall not be subject to current settlement. 15. Lease. Capital means a lease of property used in utility or non-utility operations, which meets one or more of the criteria stated in General Instruction 19. 16. Lease. Operating means a lease of property used in utility or non-utility operations, which does not meet any of the criteria stated in General Instruction 19. 17. Licensee means any person, or state, licensed under the provisions of the Federal Power Act and subject to the Commission's accounting requirements under the terms of the license. 18. Minor items of property means the associated parts or items of which retirement units are composed. 19. Net salvage value means the salvage value of property retired less the cost of removal. 20. Nominally issued, as applied to securities issued or assumed by the utility, means those which have been signed, certified, or otherwise executed, and placed with the proper officer for sale and delivery, or pledged, or otherwise placed in some special fund of the utility, but which have not been sold, or issued direct to trustees of sinking funds in accordance